You are listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast. Here are Brad, Lisa, Brian, and Darren.
Welcome to another edition of the It Modcast podcast. Joining us is Brian Young, the Turtle Dork.
Oh, listeners, if you only knew. Happy Friday.
And also joining us is Lisa Gullickson, wife Dork.
I want to suck your blood.
Yeah, and Brad Gullickson, mouth Dork.
Ah, children of the night, what beautiful music they make.
I wish I could tattoo that sound to my body.
Yeah.
And I'm your host, Darren Smith, the Disco Dork. And welcome to the It Modcast podcast, Fistful Friday.
Spooky.
Bloodsucker edition. A fistful of leeches.
What? This Friday, in honor of the month of October and Halloween and all of the festive, spooky celebrations and all that, we have a fistful of vampires, possibly once again. Full disclosure and transparency, we may or may not have done a fistful of vampires, but there are so many vampires that I do not believe they can be contained in just one fist.
So I pretty much feel like I'm doubling down on a couple.
Sometimes you have to double down on fists.
This is my fistful.
Yep.
And it has the same fingers in it every
Yep.
time. Vampire fingers.
Brian.
So cold.
I have no idea what your number 5 is, even though you've probably said this before.
Maybe, I don't know.
I
but
know.
It's weird because this is actually a movie that I used to. Well, it's funny because I remember we talked about this before, and I didn't know that this actor was in this movie, and it was a staple in the '80s for me that I grew up on. And I was like, he was in that movie. That was him.
I know what you're gonna say.
Once
Bitten.
Yeah, Jim Carrey. Once Bitten. I used to watch this movie religiously a lot.
Is that Beverly D'Angelo in this one?
Oh God,
I don't think so.
No, Lauren Hutton,
Yeah.
who played
Hutton.
the Countess. Yeah. So she has to find a virgin to bite, and she finds he plays the character Mark Kendall. And yeah, man, this is like one of those movies, like The Boy Who Could Fly and some other stuff that I used to just watch when I was a kid in the '80s.
Boy Who Could
I love that
Fly.
movie. I love that movie, man. I'm sorry, bro. I grew up on that movie. I love
so
that movie.
boring.
Yeah, I
I've
like
never
it.
seen that movie.
I like
You would love it. You would think
I
he was the
would.
cutest. Yeah, he's an angel. He's not an angel, but he flies.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just like one of those
Tell me
movies.
no more. I'm so
But,
excited.
Child eye roll.
Yeah. But yeah, Once Bitten, and just after I got through that period of my life, I just never revisited the film. So it's been like I'm so far removed from Once Bitten, but I do remember like just bits and pieces and certain scenes. Like I think I remember a scene where Jim Carrey he like turns and hisses at somebody.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was just one of those fun. Oh, and then another one was Love Potion #9. That was another movie I used to watch with
hated that
with Sandra Bullock.
That one I hate.
I don't know. I used to like those movies when I was younger. But yeah, Once Bitten. I just all those little crazy. I mean, I know we have like
That era for me was The Heavenly Kid.
the Heavenly. I don't think I've seen that one.
Perfect Tommy.
That one I didn't like so much.
Okay.
Fuck you both.
But yeah, I mean, Once Bitten, it just brings back a lot of childhood memories, and I did not know that was Jim Carrey. I just did not know that was Jim Carrey at the time, and even after he became famous, because I said I was so far removed from that movie, I just never thought about Once Bitten. It was just a movie that lived in my childhood. So when like we talked about it and you brought it back up, I was like, oh shit, that was Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
And
And for me, at that point in seeing it, Jim Carrey wasn't. I think this may have been pre In Living Color. So for me, it wasn't like, oh gosh, I'm watching Jim Carrey. It was just I'm watching this movie. It's a funny guy. I like the movie. Then he got famous. Did Living Color, Ace Ventura, and then I would go back to revisit it and realize, oh, that's Jim Carrey. But yeah, it's a great funny. I haven't revisited it in a while, so I don't know how well it's aged. But I mean it's Jim Carrey, so you can do worse. You can do worse.
Absolutely. So that's my number 5.
Wife Dork, your number 5.
With my number 5, I of course have to do a nod to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, because for me that's like vampire truth. Like I've seen so much Buffy the Vampire Slayer that's the version of vampire lore that I believe. Like they don't like crosses. You stake them in the heart and they turn to dust. Easy cleanup. Love that shit. And also, and the souls and the no souls. I buy all of that stuff.
Are they anti-garlic?
They are not anti-garlic. That is a myth. That is not the truth, like everything else in Buffy the Vampire Slayer is a truth. Based on a true story. Mostly. Call back to Victoria and Abdul, who saw that coming. But the episode I'm going to reference specifically is the episode Buffy versus Dracula.
Oh.
So this is when Dracula, the weird count from Transylvania, visits Sunnydale, and it's just most of the episode is just a fun romp on the idea of Dracula, and he has the powers of seduction and mind control, and so he somehow uses his powers over Buffy and bites her and then can mind control her and has mind control over Xander, and he's eating spiders and being Xander. Poor Xander. Like Xander always gets, like, whenever he gets the mojo put on him, it's always the worst. But like what makes this particular episode so controversial is that even though it's like pretty much a Monsters of the Week episode for most of the episode. Oh, and you have the three sisters, and the three sisters seduce Giles and stuff. It's great. Is that this is the episode that introduces Michelle Trachtenberg as Dawn Summers. So this is the first episode where all of a sudden Buffy's got a little sister, and we do not know where she came from. And we're angry that she's there because we hate change.
Because I do remember when she came to the show. I watched Buffy, but it's been so long. I need to rewatch it.
We've had this conversation the last time we did this vampire episode. I'm pretty sure.
I probably have seen this one, but I can't remember. Okay.
Yeah, so Michelle Trachtenberg's character of Dawn just kind of mysteriously comes out of nowhere, and Buffy acts like she's always had a sister. And then we find out, as the series unfolds, what she's doing there. And is she really Buffy's sister? And is she a force of good or, chaotic neutral or whatever? Like, what is her purpose? And is she a person? And blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But I remember that initial, like, when she's first introduced, being like, what the fuck is this? Shit,
they said that on network television?
No, that's what I said. I said, but it was probably before Lisa's swearing time, so I was like, oh no, my feelings are hurt.
Translate to,
yeah. What the fuck is this? Who is this bitch?
All right.
So, but I have learned to love Dawn, and I've learned to love this really wacky episode. Buffy versus Dracula.
All right. Hey, Lisa, remember that one time you were walking down the street and had a conversation with the creator of that show?
I do remember it. Now his name is besmirched by Twitter. Now I'm wondering if he was hitting on me.
No, wait. That's not true. Rabbit hole. Brad, hurry. You're number 5.
It was a really nice time.
You just watched it happen, Brad? What the fuck?
I didn't know.
No, that was a magical moment.
It was.
Let's not take away the magical moment.
No, it was a very magical
He's so a man with great ideas.
We don't need to talk about the time I met Harvey Weinstein.
He was faux show hitting on you.
Please don't.
He's like, you want to be on a movie? I've got a sweet couch.
I'm sorry.
You still didn't get the part, Brad.
I sure did not.
Oh, God.
So for me, vampires, I don't particularly gravitate towards the Anne Rice version, the suave, immortal, the sparkly Edward. That's not my vampire. The vampire I like is a monster. And the ultimate design for that creature.
High five me when you say it.
Well, it's Nosferatu. Are we high-fiving?
Oh, that was close to being my number 5.
Well,
yeah, Nosferatu.
But Nosferatu's not my number 5.
Ooh. I know what your number 5 is.
I know you don't, because I got a real good trick here.
Uh-oh.
I love the Klaus Kinski version of Nosferatu, of his Count Orloff. I love Willem Dafoe's version of Max Schreck playing Count Orloff in Shadow of the Vampire.
I've never seen that.
I love the design that you see, the variation of it in Salem's Lot. But my number 5 is the shadow cast by the pedophiles in Running Scared, the Wayne Kramer, Paul Walker movie.
Yeah.
When they kidnap the little boy Olga, and they that fantasy land that Wayne Kramer is crafting throughout that movie, these witches, these demons that he falls prey to, and he needs Vera Farmiga to come to his rescue. Whenever they cast a shadow or they pass through the bathroom door, that translucent,
it happens that
door,
one time.
Is it just the one time?
It's that one time, right. But it's so...
I know, it's so...
It's so devastatingly scary, and it is the Nosferatu silhouette.
Exactly.
And that's my number 5, the silhouette as seen in Running Scared.
That sequence is so creepy.
That movie is so fucking underrated.
Yes.
I just recently saw that not too long ago.
For the first time?
No. I have it on DVD. But yeah, I know. But it's such a good movie. Such a great film.
Yeah.
My favorite Paul Walker film.
Yeah.
Oh,
this is his best performance.
Easily.
Yeah,
if you haven't checked it out, listeners, please check it out. It's called Running Scared. It is a Paul Walker film. And what Brad was mentioning about like this fairy tale, it feels like a grim fairy tale.
The whole film feels like that.
And there's no like overt like magical elements or any literal fairies or anything like that in it, but just the way this weird odyssey that
visual metaphor all over the place.
Oh man, so good. A very intense ride. So highly recommend it. Definitely check that out. Good pick. My number 5 is gonna be so this is probably one of the only movies with a vampire or vampires in them that scared me as a kid, that I found hard to watch, and it is the 80s film Vamp with Grace Jones. That movie is nuts, first of all, but Grace Jones, she just scared me as her character in the film she was a very, like as most vampires tend to be, she's a very sexual being. And then outside of her being a very sexual being and a vampire, I mean, she's Grace Jones. She's a very intimidating woman anyway. But just the way they had her in the film, like her this wig, her red hair, and so this group of guys, and one of the guys gets seduced by her, and there's one particular scene where she's on top of him, and she turns like one of the main characters. So first she looks like Grace Jones in the wig, but then like she's on top of him, and he has his head back, and he's in the throes of like ecstasy or whatever, and then she transforms while she's on top of him, like in the practical. It's back in the 80s, so it was like practical effects. Like so you see like they have a shot of like her feet and her toes friggin' get long and curl up, and then like her fingers get long and skinny and claws come out. And then she tilts her head back, and then then they have the prosthetic effect of her face changing. And when she tilts her head forward, it looks so freaking grotesque. And that she's about to. I mean, she's a vampire. That she's about to change. It was not like a jump scare or anything like that, but just the way that effect looks, just the way that she looks. Like for me as a kid, like it was hideous, and it frightened me so much because, and I don't know that if there was an inherent uneasiness with that film with me because I was so young, and that film was sexual in nature. They have a bunch of sexual elements in it. I can't remember if there was like a brothel of vampires or what it was, but it was these guys, and they were trying to get with some girls or whatever, and they come upon like Grace Jones and these women, and they're end up killing them. And so I guess like as a kid, I knew like, well, firstly, I'm not supposed to be watching this because there's women and there are boobs in it. But then these women with boobs in it that are arousing me are turning into fucking horrifying creatures and killing these dudes. So I probably should definitely not be watching it. I just remember like that movie being really scary to me as a kid. But I love the end of that film. Like the end of that film, the guy who changes, and I think he's one of the boyfriends from friggin' Weird Science, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, the guy who changes, who's turned, like at the end, like he doesn't die. If I remember correctly, there's a shot of like the best friend walking above ground on the street, and the sun's coming out. It's like morning, the sun's coming up, sunrise, and the best friend walking underneath the streets, talking to his buddy above ground through like the street grate or something like that. So it's just they, you know, he's just accepting the fact that I'm going to be a vampire, but we're still going to be best friends. And so I just remember that shot like from the end of the film. But yeah, as a kid, like for the most part, when they first get to that place and Grace Jones turns that guy and bites him, it was horrifying. Like especially because the guy that gets bitten was like one of my favorite characters in the film. So yeah, Vamp. I have to rewatch that. I don't have that like on home video.
It's on Arrow.
Is it?
Yeah,
Blu-ray.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I want to buy it because
it's only $40.
Horrifying. 40. Jeez. All right, Brian, you're number 4.
So I guess I'll just get this out the way because this might be kind of obvious. But I'm going to have it on my list because he's a badass vampire.
Oh
no! Don't you do it, motherfucker?
No, this is not what I thought. Okay.
Oh, I mean, he's
oh, fuck. Okay.
I mean, it's obvious. Blade.
Yay!
I mean, you know,
the Daywalker.
Some motherfuckers always try to ice skate up a hill.
That should have been your quote.
I said it once before, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Brian, do you blush?
That's been a quote before.
Yeah. I do. Oh. I'm light skinned, so I can blush. but yeah, I don't know, 1998. 98, yeah, I should know this. When the first Blade came out, and I remember seeing this in the theater, and that opening scene in that rave, and when he comes through, is just so iconic and so cinematic. And seeing Wesley Snipes, and we talked about this, Darren, because I know you're not the biggest Wesley Snipes fan.
I'm not even the littlest Wesley Snipes fan.
But I mean, I'm not the biggest Wesley Snipes fan either, but I do enjoy a lot of his action films from the 90s. I like Money Train. Sorry, I do.
I like Money.
Drop Zone. Okay.
White Man Can't Jump.
White Man Can't Jump. Yeah, I mean, so he has his moments, but to be able to really kind of take this character and really make it his own and define it, you know, with him playing this role, and just Stephen Dorff as the villain, Sanaa Lathan as. Tell us how you really feel. Sanaa Lathan, I think it was, that played his mother.
Udo Kier was in that one, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's my favorite real life vampire.
He's my favorite friend that I have in real life. We're BFFs.
And Donald Logue, who was in it as well.
Yeah.
And Boucher Wright was in it. She played his mother.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Wait,
I thought that was
Sanaa Lathan. She was the other one.
No, and Boucher Wright was the girlfriend. Sorry.
Yeah. And of course, Chris Christopherson. I mean, just a great cast. And I mean, really, honestly, the first Marvel kind of film in kind of like this new age. Of course, people say X-Men.
The Duck.
Howard the Duck. But of this new age of comic book movies, kind of started with 2000s X-Men, and just kind of has really kind of evolved into what we have now. I kind of think it always starts with 1998 with that first Blade film, and of course going to Guillermo del Toro's Blade 2. It's such a great character.
Which is the better one, Brian?
It is. No, it is. I mean, I like the first movie for what it did as far as like kind of establishing that character and comic book movies in that era. But Blade 2 is the better film. But I don't know.
We can remain friends.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm just talking about the character itself of Blade. So yeah, I like Wesley Snipes in that role, and I like the character of Blade. I would love to see you know, like that character be reimagined or rebooted. So
what about Blade Trinity?
That should not be spoken of ever.
We're still friends.
Okay. Yes.
All right, wife Dork, your number 4.
My number 4 is a film that plays on the idea that the vampire is a metaphor for puberty and sexuality, and when you've crossed this threshold, you now have this unquenchable thirst for people, you know.
I knew we were going to talk about Twilight.
So the movie I'm going to talk about, the vampire I'm going to talk about is Jeremy Capello, played by Robert Sean Leonard, in My Best Friend is a Vampire. Oh. So my sister, when she was in high school, and I guess that would put me, she's 4 years older than me, so probably middle school, late elementary school, she was obsessed, weirdly, with Robert Sean Leonard. Like that was like her dream boy, I suppose. And so I just remember this time where we would just churn through Robert Sean Leonard movies, and one of them was the 1988 film My Best Friend is a Vampire, which stars a 19-year-old Robert Sean Leonard, and he must weigh about 97 pounds. He is such a boy in this film, so skinny, and it's just like your typical teen vampire thing where he wants to be with girls, and he doesn't know how to act, and then he's like seduced by this woman or comes to him in his dreams, and he finds her in real life, and then his horny friend's like, go do her, and he's like, okay, and then he's a vampire. and it, like, when I saw this, I mean, I probably have not seen this since 1997 or 1996, but I was just like refreshing my memory, and I remember like the scenes of like Robert Sean Leonard looking all pale and searching through the fridge for raw meat and whatever, and going like, garlic, ew. And I remember like he had like this like kind of mentor character who's kind of like, you're a vampire now, and here's a book about it, and the character's name is MODOK, and he's played by Renee Aja Benoit. Odo is that character. But like glancing through the Wikipedia page, I did not realize how deeply 80s this film was. And so there's like this whole subplot of like, so Jeremy's parents notice, oh, their son is, kind of, he's not going out so much, and he's like really sad and stays inside, so he must be gay is what they assume. And so like this entire time he's going through this like transformation, and their parents are like like trying to come to grips with raising a homosexual in the 80s, which I imagine is challenging. and so the movie ends with them I guess assuring Jeremy that they'll love him no matter what. And he's like, don't worry, guys, I'm just a fucking blood-sucking vampire. It's like way better.
I've never seen this film, and you've talked about it many times.
I've talked about it many. I think that I talked about this on our last vampire episode because it haunts me. It haunts me.
I've seen this on HBO several times in my childhood.
I remember it being cute. Yeah. I remember Robert Sean Leonard being cute, or maybe that's what my sister told me. So I was like,
mod
sure.
Homework episode.
What? No, I like rereading this. I think that I'm just good with reading the Wikipedia once a year.
All right, B, your number 4.
My number 4 is my absolute favorite makeup. Not necessarily the design, that's the Nosferatu, but my favorite makeup comes from Francis Ford Coppola's 1992 Bram Stoker's Dracula. Gary Oldman is a beast in every sense of the word for this film. But in particular, the moment when Van Helsing leads his crew to Carfax Abbey, where they're going to bust up his coffin filled with his Transylvanian soil. That's also when Drac is going to kill Renfield at the asylum, and when Dracula comes back to the Abbey where he encounters Van Helsing and their torches, he's in the form he takes is this leathery bat beast. Mm-hmm. And we've already seen him as a wolf. We've seen him as Mist. We've seen him as Dapper Gary Oldman. We've seen him as the bunhead Gary Oldman. But this leathery bat creature, the latex, the appliances, the suit that is worn is just stunning, and has to be one of my favorite creature effects ever. I also love Dracula's armor in the prologue to this film as well, the red Pringle ripple armor.
Yes.
But yeah, this bat, Bram Stoker's Dracula or Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula has some weaknesses in it for sure. Keanu Reeves, Winona Ryder as the leads. Not the most British people on the planet. But I love the theatricality on display. Francis Ford Coppola is not at all interested in realism. He's interested in artifice. And we celebrate the style and the artificiality of people like Wes Anderson. And I think you could easily go and approach this version of Dracula with that same kind of appreciation for the unreal.
I'm honestly shocked that you chose this Francis Ford Coppola vampire over Twix. Nosferatu.
I was close, man. I was close to picking that.
Twixt. I mean, you have to watch Twixt for that Val Kilmer webcam monologue where he dips into like a gay Wilt Chamberlain and then right into Marlon Brando impressions. It's an atrocity that has to be seen for sure.
And that was in Hall H.
Bruh, I was gonna say one of the
that was our first year.
One of the rarest experiences. I mean, we always talk about like footage we get to see. Like
Lisa
from
and I
Marvel
were not
films
there for it,
that-
and I am
Dude,
sad.
we talk about footage that we get to see that never gets screened anywhere else, like James Gunn's Guardians presentation or like the Infinity War footage or whatever. But honestly, like one of the rarest things that we've seen in Hall H, Brian, you were there with me, right?
I was
when Francis Ford Coppola was there with Twix
and Val Kilmer was there.
And we talked about it before. Like his idea for that movie was he was going to go around
and re-edit
that movie in real time in the theater.
Because he talked about like how his father was a train conductor, and it was like being like a train conductor,
switching the tracks and shit like that. Like,
did that ever happen?
I don't think so.
No.
But I mean, like, did he go to a single theater and live edit that movie?
But he did it like when he tried to do it in Hall H, and then he was like, his score for it was him just repeating Nosferatu over and over. Like, it was the weirdest shit ever. Like, I don't know how high he was, but he was high as fuck.
I'm so sad.
It was
I
so
missed
nuts.
I kept saying it even on the plane ride home.
Oh, Brian just got on my freaking nerves.
Nosferatu.
It was the weirdest shit. Because first of all, Twix in and of itself, like if you've seen the finished product, I mean, it's a weird film. So just imagine like Francis Ford Coppola himself up there trying to sell. I mean, it sounds innovative and like curious, but he's up there trying to like sell you that this weird looking film and we see that scene with Val Kilmer like doing this gay Wilt Chamberlain impression and then Brando, but Francis Ford Coppola is saying that okay, just imagine this, but each time you go see it, like it being in a different way, and it maybe this scene isn't in the movie at all the second time you see it, or maybe it's at the beginning or the end. Like he tried
to compare it to like a play, like a Broadway play or something like that, where the performances are different every time, so the movie experience will be different every time.
I mean, I love the idea behind
the idea
that.
of it. Yeah,
I mean, it's mad.
It never got executed though.
But that moment right there for you guys, that's the height of San Diego Comic-Con. The fact that was in Hall H playing to 6,000 people.
Nuts.
Whoa.
Yeah. All right.
So that was your number 4.
No, I wish. My number 4 is I'm gonna go with Catherine Bigelow's Near Dark.
Oh.
So I guess this is one of my favorite vampire stories or films because I mean it is unconventional. I guess it can be argued as being unconventional in that the story takes place, I believe, like it's in the Midwest. There's this guy played by Adrian Passeter. He's like this drifter. He meets this young lady one night. They have this sexual encounter. Not before she bites him on the neck, and then he's picked up by this van full of drifters, these travelers, this family of vampires, and Lance Henriksen, Bill Paxton in a really great performance. Jeanette, I can't remember her last name, but she was in T2. She was Vasquez in Aliens.
Oh man, what's her name?
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so and then the young lady that Adrian Passeter had the one night stand with, they're this family, and so he gets abducted by them, and his father sees this happen, and they're searching for him. Meanwhile, he's on the road with his family, and they're telling him this is what you are now, and they're just trying to show him the ropes, and him coming to grips with turning into a vampire and living this life.
Janet Goldstein,
yeah. But but it's a really interesting take on the vampire film. Just the setting in and of itself is different, and it was something that I appreciated. And this was way back. I mean, this was like 80. Is that on? Do you have IMDb pulled up? Do you know what year that came out in?
I can tell you in a second.
But this was like back in the 80s, and it was just a
1987.
1987. Oh, same year as RoboCop. Good grief. So it just had a different feel to it, and I love the ending of that film. It's a great. If you haven't seen it, it's a great Bill Paxton performance, and Lance Henriksen is amazing in it as well. But I think I don't know if that's Catherine Bigelow's first film. But it is a very strong film for her, for a filmmaker who will go on to do some really good work in Hollywood. So we were talking earlier about debut filmmakers and their first films. If this is in fact her first film, it's not. It's not
The Loveless, the Willem Dafoe movies is the first.
That I did not see. But nonetheless, Near Dark is a great vampire film. Check it out if you have not seen it. Brian, your number 3.
So I had to toss up between two, in fear that one of you guys may pick it before I did. But I mean, they're on my list regardless. But I think I'm going to go with my initial number 3, and that is a vampire that's an educational vampire. He taught me how to count.
Yay!
That is Count Von Count from Sesame Street.
That is not on my list.
That is not on my list.
It should have been on my list. I have regrets.
So 1, 2,
Do you know how to do the Betty Bat? Doing the Betty Bat.
Oh no!
It's a waltz.
Oh, nice. Count Von Count had his little segment on Sesame Street. I used to love Sesame Street when I was younger.
Hated it.
Really?
Brad
my
was
God.
a shitty
2 snaps
child.
and a twist.
It's a good thing that Brad and I did not meet as children because
Oh
I
my
would have.
hated
goodness.
Sesame Street.
You
You're
didn't
an
like
asshole.
Sesame Street?
No.
Oh my goodness, man! I loved all those.
Boring.
Big Bird and Oscar the Grouch.
No.
Oscar was gangster.
I would not be the person I am today without the Muppets and without Sesame Street. They taught me to fucking care about monsters.
Next, you're going to
there
try
you
to
go.
tell me that Mr. Rogers mattered.
Oh my goodness!
I'm going to.
What did you watch as a child?
Brad was an
Manhunter.
asshole kid.
Oh man, but I love Sesame Street. Bert and Ernie and Count Von Count, and then we would cross over with like other characters like Bert and Ernie and the Cookie Monster and stuff like that. And to see all of them together, I don't know, it was just fun. Like I said, it was educational, and Count Von Count. He taught kids how to count.
All right, at least you're number 3.
That is
Mine-
not what I expected.
I love it so much, though.
Thank you, Lisa. Goodness gracious, somebody on my side.
I like Sesame Street. I like the count. Brad was the asshole kid. He hated it.
I'm considering pulling an audible.
Do it.
Because I feel like now I've got deja vu like so fucking bad that I want to pick something that was because I have down Sheila Vand as the girl in A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night.
Oh, I don't think you did it last time.
Are you sure?
I'm positive.
Because I feel like I
That's
did.
a good pick.
It is a great pick because it's another one about the sensuality and the sexuality of
go
a
with
vampire, and then also the idea of the vampire as outcast and how we can all identify with that idea of an outcast and how the boy in the story used that as his escape out of his existence but I also thought of The Lure because while they are mermaids, they are also technically bloodsuckers. And I did not have a musical on my list. And I've been in the spirit because I'm in the midst of writing a series of articles for After Movie Diner about horror musicals.
Oh, interesting.
I wonder where that idea came from.
My brain and Halloween, and somebody's like, wouldn't it be great if we had a series about Halloween, like horror themes? And I'm like, I'm not much of a horror buff, but I do know musicals, and because of that, I just watched Repo Man.
No, Repo the Genetic Opera.
Repo the Genetic Opera. That is the fucking worst. I watched that movie and I said, I will not write about this film. Not that I can regret watching a movie starring Anthony Stewart Head singing his heart out as he murders people. Like I say that and I go, of course I have to watch this film, but it is just so awful.
Would you consider Little Shop of Horror a horror?
Yes, I'm, and that's on my list.
Good, okay.
That's for sure on my list. I actually,
love that
because
movie.
I just watched Repo Man, and I'm like, nah.
Repo the Genetic Opera. Repo Man is great.
Repo Man is great and not a musical. Repo the Genetic Opera. I decided I was going to start with Sweeney Todd, but not the movie version that came out, but the original Angela Lansbury stage production.
Oh, stage production. Okay.
Because it's amazing, and it really was my introduction to the horror genre.
Wasn't there an older movie?
No.
Sweeney Todd?
Is there an? Oh, I mean, if there was, I don't know about it because it originated on Broadway. Okay. But I'm sure that the story didn't originate on Broadway. Maybe it's some kind of. I've never
because I remember watching it in high school. And
really?
I think we saw a movie. Not the Johnny Depp because I went around when I was in high school. But right. I know I watched it in high school, and I know it was a movie.
I think you watched. I would think you watched the stage production because it was at our high school also.
Okay.
But yeah, that's and I had never watched a horror movie before because I wasn't allowed to watch them. Yeah. But I was allowed to watch the fuck out of some PBS. And so, I was like, it's a musical, and I have no idea what I'm watching. Before I know it, I'm watching like this guy murder people, and there's like this creepy implied pedophilia and self-flagellation, and I'm like, this is great and terrifying. But what I'm talking about is the lure, and that is why the lure is in my number 3. They're vampires and they're mermaids, and it's a musical. Thank you. And it's Polish. It's in Polish. It might be the only Polish movie I've ever seen.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure.
I'll have to put a button in that. Brad, your number 3.
My number 3 is a movie I thought for sure would be on Brian's list already.
Oh,
and
God.
It's probably because it's on 2 or 1. I'm going to steal it from you.
No, I'm going to take it. I'm going to use it.
It's
Blade 2.
No, Santanico
Pandemonium.
Pandemonium.
I knew it. I shouldn't have got it.
But I'll let you have her.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and I'll take Sex Machine when he turns into that rat creature.
Okay. I thought you were going to take Cheech Marin.
Cheech Marin's great, and Fred Williamson's vampire is awesome too. From Dusk Till Dawn. Actually, I also love Harvey Keitel's version of
and Tarantino's.
Vampire. I don't really like Tarantino's.
His head's too big.
Yeah, it's like an Easter Island head appliance. It doesn't quite work for me personally. Yeah. But going back to the rat and how it is just completely torn apart, and by that point in the movie, heads are flying, and the idea that Rodriguez and Tarantino gave to the vampire myth that their bodies were soft, so that you could just push right through them and like rip their hearts out or rip their spleens out or rip their spines out or rip their heads off was truly delightful, because how is that film R-rated? Like, it is a splatterfest of a movie.
The last action scene or that last beat of that film where bullet holes are being shot in the wall so that beams of glorious heavenly light could come in and make these vampires explode brings me endless joy, because there are so many exploding bodies at the end of that movie. Yeah. They're just blowing up. It's just glorious. It's amazing.
Fuck you, good night!
And the dialogue is just, I mean, Tarantino's dialogue, and I love... God, I love that.
That's a great movie.
It really is.
In this era of nostalgic grindhouse experience that Tarantino and Rodriguez would attempt to do with Planet Terror and Death Proof, truly the closest they ever came to replicating that level of exploitation was in From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah, they had already done it.
That was the Crank 2 of its day.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Interesting comparison. Okay.
Very interesting comparison.
People get it.
They do? Really? I'm surprised that wasn't your film club pick.
Shit!
God damn it, Brian.
Don't worry.
Audible.
Episode has not come out yet.
It'll come back around.
All right.
Oh my God! I said I was going to do Craig 2 as a film club.
You did.
Now that we're recording the next episode, now you remind me, you jerk.
You jog my memory.
We're just confusing these people. Oh my goodness. All right. My number 3 is in fact Wesley Snipes is Blade in Blade 2.
Okay.
As Brad mentioned, rightfully so, Blade 2 is the superior Blade film. It is the superior Wesley Snipes film. It is my favorite Wesley Snipes movie. And as Brian mentioned, I'm not a huge fan of Wesley Snipes, but because of what Guillermo del Toro and Wesley Snipes did as a collaborative effort, it made for a very entertaining and badass and comic book character. Del Toro did a great job in bringing the comic book to life. It's a very entertaining and enlightening commentary. If you listen to the commentary track for Blade 2, where Del Toro talks about the comic book influences and his efforts to consciously put those things.
That's one of my all-time favorite commentary tracks.
It's great. It is great. It's a commentary track to a great film. He talked about the iconic opening of the rave of the first one. Yeah. Now I don't know that the opening of the second film is as iconic, but from an action beat standpoint, the choreography and just I don't like Wesley Snipes as his personality. Like I'm too cool for school, whatever. But his Blade fits that. And I don't mean I don't like that persona like in the movie Blade. I mean in real life,
yeah,
on Twitter,
right, or whatever. But it fits for the character of Blade. But what I do, even though I don't like that about Wesley Snipes, what I do love about Wesley Snipes is his physical prowess. Like he is a high-ranking martial artist.
Oh yeah,
and it comes through in the choreography. I can't remember the guy's name, but this is the collaborator that he works with as far as choreography in all of his films. But they construct some very innovative and hard-hitting fight sequences. And this is a film about a guy killing vampires, and you have some hardcore action sequences in it and martial arts and things like that. And it's very hard hitting. I mean, you would see it in the first Blade film. Oh, yeah. But in the second one, I think it's escalated, especially in that opening sequence. That opening sequence has like 3 different acts, I think.
In that warehouse.
The warehouse, when he first, in the alley, when he first jumps off the landing, he gets the motorcycle.
Yeah.
But in the warehouse, and also like when he's going through that corridor and he's fighting those guys.
Yeah.
And then you have like the Blood Pack with Ron Perlman and Donnie Yen, who's criminally underutilized.
Oh, yeah.
You got Chupa, your guy from Fast and the Furious.
Yeah, and the young Norman Reedus is in it.
Norman Reedus is good in it. And Christopher Walken returns. And so
you have a body blow up.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And then the end of that film when Blade is like he's severely damaged, he's severely hurt, and he throws himself into that pool of blood, and then he gets re-energized and he comes out like that action sequence. Yeah. Go back and rewatch that. That's the raid level fight choreography.
Electric clubs.
The electric clubs, just hand to hand. He freaking does a suplex to that guy. Yeah. And that's when he smacks the sword out of Ron Perlman's hand and slices him up the middle in half. Like that is a badass action sequence.
I need to rewatch Blade 2.
That is a badass.
I need to rewatch Blade 2.
I really enjoy that. I really enjoy that film. And I guess he's a daywalker, but he's still considered a vampire, right? Even though he's like half human.
Yeah.
Okay, so
he fights people. He needs their blood, or he needs that special sauce that he injects into his arm.
But
Szechuan.
I think it's a superior film to the first one. It takes what was cool about the first film and elevates it, but then you have somebody like Guillermo del Toro who is really specific in wanting to recreate a comic book experience and put action to it and movement, and I think he's supremely successful.
It's kind of what I'm hoping for Thor Ragnarok, the way that Del Toro made an absolutely, utterly Del Toro movie, but still fits within the context of that series. I think Taika Waititi is going to do with Ragnarok.
Oh my God. I'm hearing all signs point to yes.
And plus, Blade 2 has that great song by Mos Def.
Oh man,
Eye Against Eye. I love it.
Yeah, even though it's only used like a snippet in the beginning. In the opening or the
Love
third second act. Anyway, a great film. Questionable CGI at the end. Fight with
Also, the beginning when the Blood Pack first break in, there is a really atrocious.
And Del Toro's he calls it out too. That it was like 2 shots.
Yeah, it's ugly.
But the Reaper is really cool design that he would go back to use and recycle for the Strain TV series.
And I just recently rewatched Pacific Rim, and you could see some of those design elements used in Pacific Rim as well.
Yeah.
So
I appreciate Blade 2. If you haven't seen it, please do yourself a favor and check it out. Awesome vampire film.
Yeah.
Awesome action movie. Brian, your number 2.
Well, my number 2 was spoiled a little bit by Mr. Brad Gullickson.
You're welcome.
That would be Selma Hayek as Santanico Pandemonium.
Lowly dog.
Great intro great introduction by Danny Trejo. Selma Hayek she's just gorgeous and beautiful in this movie, and the dance sequence number that she does with that snake, and understanding like how Rodriguez said, like actually on set. She was scared of the snake, but you could never tell while watching that scene. Like she really is like into that performance. And
there's no choreography to it. That's just her. And Rodriguez is like, dance.
Yeah, and the way she seduces
everybody,
but specifically Quentin Tarantino, and doing the liquor off the leg and like sucking her toes and all this crazy stuff. And then when shit hits the fan with Cheech Marin, and she sees the blood from Tarantino's hand, and you start to see her change and going into that. That's the switch in this movie.
That is. No, go ahead, Brad.
Well, I'll never forget seeing that movie with my dad in 1995. I had subjected him to Pulp Fiction. He had hated it.
Ooh.
And my dad doesn't like violence. He's like, it's gratuitous. It's gratuitous.
Yeah.
And then we went and saw From Dusk Till Dawn. That moment happens. And just after it dies down, he leans over. He's like, did you know there was going to be monsters? I was like, yeah. And he goes, ugh.
But that's the great thing about this film, just kind of talking about the film overall in general. It's like it's almost like a tale of two movies. Like in the first movie is about these robbers trying to cross the border and get away from these cops. And then all of a sudden it just turns into kind of like this vampire, not really a siege film.
But
it's just crazy. And
that's one of the greatest cinematic left turns of all time.
Like it just completely makes a left turn, and I love that about this movie. And From Dusk Till Dawn is one of my favorite. It might be my favorite Rodriguez film. Yeah, it might be my favorite.
Not El
Rodriguez.
Mariachi.
Definitely not Once Upon a Time.
Oh God! Okay, I'm done. Lisa, you're number 2.
Wow, this is different. My number 2 is the family from the Omega Man.
Oh,
they're kind of like a marriage of the zombie idea and the vampire idea, because it is an epidemic, and Neville Charlton Heston is trying to find the cure, but they have more volition. They're more conscious than a zombie. Plus, they're light sensitive and bloodthirsty in the fact that they're violent.
In the original I Am Legend novel, they are straight up vampires.
Boom. I haven't read the novel.
Oh, it's so good.
So, and I have to, whenever I can shout out a good cinematic Lisa character.
Yeah.
Rosalind Cash as Lisa is excellent. So, yay.
All right. Has that been at a Hess Fest?
Oh,
it has. How else would I have seen it?
Oh, okay. Brad, your number 2 is it. We should have we better have the same number 2 and number 1.
No, because you and Brian has stolen my number 2 slot already, but you didn't pick the character. I'm picking Nomak from Blade 2 as my second favorite vampire.
All right.
You mentioned the design of the Reapers, how their mouth opens up as like mandibles, and then that disgusting snake-like stinger ejects from their larynx. But I think that design is absolutely beautiful in the most grotesque way.
And it's so Del Toro.
It is Del Toro. I mean, if you go and check out the behind the scenes featurettes of that, not only do you see, shots from his journal where you see the original sketches of the Reapers, but you see his collaborations with Mike Mignola, he would go on to work on Hellboy with, but also Guy Davis, I believe, also did some of the designs on Blade 2 as well. And yeah, I like you said, the escalation of that movie, the bosses, how they become more and more insane the closer we get to the climax, from that Raid 2 sequence with the security guards and their batons to Ron Perlman, actually even to Scud, Norman Reedus' character, and Damaskinos, played by Thomas Kretschmann, and then the final battle between Blade and Nomak. And there's that one shot of Nomak standing atop a pile of guards, and he's drained all of them. And it looks like this Frank Frazetta painting. I mean, because Del Toro specifically references that image. Blade 2, not my favorite Del Toro movie. That is The Devil's Backbone. It is my second favorite because it's truly the first time where you see every single love, every single influence poured through the vessel of Del Toro onto the screen. It is not just a celebration of the Blade character. It is a celebration of pop culture, anime, horror, classic, new, and neat, and postmodern. I mean, everything that Del Toro likes. If you watch that special feature on the Kronos Blu-ray of him going through Bleak House, all of Bleak House is inside Blade 2. Yep. I say it's an underrated movie.
Super underrated. It's my favorite Del Toro movie. Devil's Backbone is my second.
Interesting.
Okay. Amazing pick. I'm surprised that your number 2 is not what my number 2 is, and that is Space Vampire, Tobe Hooper's Life Force.
It was my number 2 originally, but then I think I talked about the space vampires on our last Fistful of Vampires.
Rightfully so, because that movie is freaking amazing. It is nuts. It is bonkers.
I fell asleep in the theater watching that movie twice.
Lisa is insane.
I find
may
it
be a narcoleptic.
very soothing.
Which is crazy considering how insanely loud that movie becomes.
I don't think I've had the pleasure of seeing it on the big screen. I've missed the screening at the Alamo. I can only imagine, because that movie gets nuts. We have talked about it recently. You probably brought it up, Brad. So I won't harp on it too much, but it's not. I talked about how Near Dark was your unconventional vampire film. I think Life Force has it beat by miles and miles. Film starts out in space. You have naked.
Matilda May.
Yeah.
Hello. Good day.
It's not like a vampire that just sucks your blood. I mean, you have your life force taken out, and then they're freaking zombies. It gets apocalyptic at the end. Shit goes tits up in the worst way. And we just mentioned the escalation of Blade 2. I mean, if you look at the beginning, the first act of Life Force, and then juxtapose that with the end of that film.
Steve Railsback and Patrick Stewart screaming at each other.
Oh my God. And the special effects in that film, the visual effects in Life Force are some of the most insane but yet beautiful and amazing of a film, especially of that era. There's just so much thrown at the screen. And it just makes for a really, exhilarating yet terrifying filming experience, movie experience. So yeah, that's one of my favorites. You know what? Criminally, I do not own that one on Blu-ray. Is that an Arrow or a Shout?
Shout Factory.
I gotta pick that up. And you know what? I'm gonna pick that up before Halloween because I wanna have that on a Weekend Dork discussing a rewatch of that because I'm about due. That movie is frigging nuts. If you haven't seen it, ladies and gentlemen, please take my word for it. Check it out.
Watch it at work.
Brian, your number. Oh shit, this is your number 1.
Number 1. So I'm gonna.
We all have the same number 1.
No,
is it Blade 2 again?
No. But can you guess? Anybody guess?
You said
should be. It should
Count
actually.
Chocula.
That's a good one.
Should be obvious.
Oh
I know.
It should be obvious.
Is this a vampire in Power Rangers?
Is there one in Bad Boys?
We had a debate about this earlier in the year.
We did?
Do, do, do,
I don't know.
do,
All right.
do,
Oh, let's
do.
pick that shit up.
Underworld.
Oh, yeah!
Number one!
My lists are not in order. Man.
Yes, they are.
just
Yes,
go.
they are.
Selene. Come on, man. Selene. The baddest vampire in the world. She totes 2 guns.
Yeah. All right.
I know we had a whole YouTube conversation about Resident Evil versus Underworld, but I still refuse to believe your love of this movie.
I love Underworld, man. I love Underworld. I love this how they approach the whole idea of vampires. Excuse me. No.
You're a little choked up.
He's overcome. He's overcome with emotion here. It's because of that tight leather suit, and I get it. It's not leather. It's liquid latex.
Liquid latex, yeah. She looks good in it. She does.
Liquid
but
sex.
but no, I do. I love this. I love this world of Underworld. I really do. Again, I love the approach to vampires. I like Selene's story, and actually, when we did our It My Versus and rewatching all of those movies, I love the mythology and just how far her story goes back, and even going to like Rise of the Lycans and Rona Mitra, and learning about the kind of like that Romeo and Juliet love story with Michael Sheen's character. I love that world. I really, really do. And just the character of Selene. The most recent film that came out, Blood Wars, it was decent. We
had fun watching it.
I know you guys enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching it. I picked it up on Blu-ray, and they are doing a 6th film, I do believe. So we will catch up with Resident Evil at some point. But even though I think Resident Evil is done with this, at least this iteration of it. But yeah, I mean, I think Selene is just, I mean, for me, as far as
the
like
sexiest.
I mean, of course, hands down. But I do like her as a character, and I like, just what these movies are as these action horror movies. To me, she's just one of my favorite vampires.
I love the second one, and I really like the last one.
The last one was freaking nuts.
Finish him.
Yes. I'm gonna rip your spine out your ass.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Oh, man. All right. That was a fun time. We had a good time at the movies, B.
We did.
All right. Lisa, I have no idea what your number 1 is.
Well, my number 1 is, of course, Viago, Taika Waititi from What We Do in the Shadows. But I'm pretty sure I used that as my last one.
But you should. It's because it's right. It
is right, and it's what my heart tells me. Yes. But I'm going to use this platform to talk about Colin Farrell as Jerry in Fright Night, the remake.
Oh, yeah.
I loved that movie, and I don't think I've seen it since I saw it in the theaters.
Oh, that's not true.
Did we watch it at home?
Yeah, we've got the blue.
Yeah.
I think we watched it last year.
I want to say you maybe rewatched it after his Anton Yelchin's passing.
Oh yeah, and Anton Yelchin is great in this film.
So good.
This to me this is the closest he's ever played to like a super standard like teen character. Like the closest he plays that kind of nerdy like, won't I get the girl kind of nerdy character. But for me, it's Colin Farrell who steals the show as super sexy Jerry. The classic. I go for the beauty of the vampire, I suppose.
Again, going back to our first Comic-Con, this panel really surprised me.
Oh yeah.
And I think it was the first film we saw after Comic-Con get a release. And
either that or Drive. It was one of those.
Oh yeah. Okay, so the combination of Drive and Fright Night, I was like, everything we saw at Comic-Con is truly great. And then the Total Recall remake came out. They're like, oh, never mind.
Colin Farrell was like, you only get one.
But he's awesome, Lisa, in this Fright Night remake.
Yeah, I think it's his last truly handsome role.
No, Killing of a Sacred Deer. Get up in that armpit hair.
Oh wow, that beard is something else though.
No, it's all about that armpit hair.
Really?
He's like at least 30% hairier than an adolescent child.
He's got a beard under his arm.
That's for all you Killing of a Sacred Deer folks.
That movie's nuts. I can't wait for Brian to see that.
Oh God,
that's when I want to watch him watch, especially the
God.
third act of that film.
Am I ready for Fantastic Fest next year?
Nope.
Yeah, you are.
God.
That's a good pick, Lisa.
Why?
I have to.
Thank you.
You make me want to go back and rewatch that film now.
Do you know what that you forget that was in the film and was just awful was David Tennant.
I remember
he's
like
okay.
That magician guy, entertainment guy, or whatever.
Yeah.
He had a show or something.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be like a Chris Angel type
That's
character.
right, that's right.
He's okay.
He was super cheesy. But the chick was Imogen Poots.
Yeah.
Yep. Yes,
That
sir.
lady is a chameleon.
She is.
I love her.
Me too. I'm deeply in love.
Frank and Lola. Her
Right.
and Michael Shannon.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Ashley
Good stuff.
Wednesday, pop star, never stopping.
Oh yeah, and
Name a Poots,
the
Brian.
movie that
Green
racing
Room.
movie,
What?
Never.
Need for Speed.
Oh shit.
Wow.
I was gonna say Never Speed Alone.
I couldn't. That movie was so bad. She was in it.
All right, Brad. Our number one.
My number one is got to be a Dracula because Dracula
course.
is the ultimate vampire.
Okay, and our number one
Our,
is
our number one is the Dracula from the Monster Squad.
Yeah.
High five.
Yeah.
Because that Dracula, he could bite you.
Yeah.
He could sneak up on you as a bat.
Yep.
He could show you his armadillo.
Yep.
But most definitely, if you upset him, his main act of vengeance is to throw a stick of dynamite in your clubhouse or under your car.
And blow your shit up.
Or if you approach him firing bullets, he's just going to punch your ass.
And snap your neck.
I love the physicality of Duncan Rager as Dracula in the Monster Squad.
And he's not above calling a little girl a bitch.
No.
What?
It's true.
It was so awesome rewatching. Well, it's always awesome rewatching the Monster Squad. But I think I speak for everyone here who got to see that screening. Rewatching it again most recently, especially sitting next to you, Brad, and seeing that Dracula up on the screen and maybe coming to that realization at that point. For me, it was like, okay, that's the best. That's the best Dracula. That's the best cinematic version of Dracula. I love much respect to like the classics and Bela Lugosi and everyone else, but like this is, I don't know, like it's something about just his visage. Like I just love the way he looks. I love the way he carries himself. Like he's imposing.
He's a man on a mission.
Yeah. And he's mean. He's a mean-spirited Dracula. He's a mean-spirited Dracula. Monster Squad is just an awesome movie. If you haven't seen it, or if you're due for a rewatch, now is there's no better time than now, especially in the month of October.
Better than the Goonies, right, Darren?
You know what? I gotta say, yeah.
Oh!
I gotta say, and I love the Goonies.
I just picked that up in the Walmart $8 bin.
You're just like
Nice,
fishing
you.
for gold out there
do.
at Walmart.
They got all the classics.
I do. I love Walmart, man. That $8 bin, boy.
Child labor.
Wow. All right. So hit us up on social media and let us know what your top 5 Fistful of Vampires are again. At ItModcast. You can follow us. Oh, also be on the lookout for our ItMod Film Club. The next one coming up in a few weeks is
Planet of the Apes.
Not Crank 2.
Not Crank
Not
2.
Crank 2. Not the 2001 Tim Burton version,
Oh.
but the OG 1968 classic.
All right. With Chuck Keston.
Yes.
All right. So you have a couple of weeks to check that out. Hashtag ItMod Film Club. Let us know your thoughts, questions, or comments about the film. And we will have the conversation take off from there.
And our next Fistful, we did ghosts, we've done vampires. Should we do another monster next year?
I mean, if you want to stay in the Halloween spirit,
Yeah, I think we got to.
Got a couple more weeks.
Do we do werewolves?
do
Do we do zombies? Do we do mummies?
ghouls, or is that too
Ghouls?
vague?
That's vague.
That's vague.
That's
yeah.
too vague.
If we do monsters, we can just do. We can
We've
include
definitely done a Fistful of monsters.
Oh, yeah.
like we did a Fistful of Vampires.
Have we
Yeah.
done zombies?
I don't think we've done specifically zombies.
All right. Can you do that?
Yeah, I know my zombies.
All right. Let's do a Fistful of Zombies. Oh, I know what Lisa's number 1 is.
Yeah, you do.
I think. I don't know.
What? Had to be there, Brian. Anyway, you can follow the Turtle Dork at the Turtle Dork on Twitter, Instagram. Well, at Twitter at the Turtle Dork, on Instagram at the Turtle Dork 1, and on Facebook at Brian William Young. He's also on the In the Mouth of Dorkness YouTube channel. Check him out there for his reviews and trailer reactions and things like that. Wife Dork is at Sidewalk Siren on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. And
Don't friend me on Facebook.
Don't do it.
Not unless you want to get unfriended on your
Denied.
birthday.
Wow. All right. Brad is at MouthDork on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Letterboxd, and Untapped. And I am Darren Smith, the Disco Dork, on all social medias. That's going to do it for us. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Go watch a movie. What came out today?
Geostorm.
Oh.
Go
And
watch
we
that.
loved it.
I loved it. It was amazing. A ball of fun. If you haven't seen it yet, go see Happy Death Day. If you can check it out in its limited release, please go see The Florida Project, support independent films, and Sean Baker's follow-up to his excellent Tangerine, which you should also check out if you haven't seen it. And be safe and have fun out there. That's going to do it for us. Until next time.